This was an article you gave me. I think this was one of the final articles we were going to do last week.
Right.
FCC versus the Microsoft Activision deal. What you really need to know. Do you still want me to go over this, even though there's been more developments on this?
We could combine stories of it like between 2 weeks from now. Go ahead now if you want.
All
But
right.
yeah, yeah.
All right, so I'll just read it. Anyway, the fate of Microsoft's bid to buy Activision, one of the first and oldest third-party publishers in console video gaming, now rests in the hands of a single person. The company and the Federal Trade Commission spent a week in federal court over the latter's request that a judge put a stop to the deal. Testimonies and closing arguments are now done. Since last Thursday, longtime fans of both Xbox and PlayStation have gotten glimpses of the fast-paced hardball business world of platform holders and major publishers in video gaming. What happens now could not only be a historic moment in video gaming, it could shape how millions play them for years to come. Here's what you really need to know about the past week, where matters are headed, and whether this mega deal will go through. Pictures. What happens next in the Microsoft Activision FTC case? The judge in the Federal Trade Commission's against Microsoft over its $68.7 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard is expected to rule before July 18th, which they already ruled, whether to block the deal. That's the closing date for the proposal buyout of the publisher of Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Overwatch. The Federal Trade Commission already filed a lawsuit in December to block the deal. This hearing regards the government's request for a restraining order stopping all merger activity and preventing it from closing. Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley granted that temporarily on June 13th. Her next choice is whether to make that permanent. The restraining order would stop the deal until the FTC's overall lawsuit against the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal is resolved. What happens if the judge rules for Microsoft and Xbox? The acquisition would go forward and the deal would become a lot harder for the FTC to unwind. The FTC would have to consider whether it would be worth the effort, as a ruling denying its motion would be seen as a vote of no confidence in its antitrust case. That case was brought under the FTC's own administrative law apparatus, an in-house court basically, so neither Corley nor her judicial district would be involved. Bigger picture, two other major regulatory bodies, the United Kingdom and European Union, have already passed judgment on the Microsoft Activision deal. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority moved it to block it in April. The European Union approved it in May. Though these three all act independently, two bodies agreeing might convince the third one to change its mind. Microsoft could also relocate the offices that it or Activision has in the UK if Corley lets the deal go forward. What happens if the judge rules for the FTC? Then the deal does not close, and it seems likely that Microsoft would abandon it altogether, paying Activision's termination fee, believed to be about $3 billion. In addition to that penalty, Microsoft attorney Beth Wilkinson told the New York Times that a suit before the FTC's in-house court would be a 3-year administrative nightmare that would tank the deal altogether regardless of its ruling. If Microsoft wins, what games will be Xbox exclusive? With Xbox Chief Financial Officer Tim Stewart on the stand Thursday, the FTC revealed a November 2021 email between him and Xbox Game Studios head Matt Booty, in which the overhaul... Matt Booty? Okay. In which the overall head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, decreed that all ZeniMax games henceforth would be PC and Xbox exclusive. All games going forward, Stewart replied, not just new IP, but all games going forward. Wow. So we can pretty much count on the next Elder Scrolls game, which a Microsoft attorney may have let slip is targeted for 2026 launch, being Xbox and PC exclusive, though that hasn't been explicitly said yet. Xbox Game Studios consists of 22 studios, many of them already making Xbox exclusive titles like the Forza Motorsport or Gears of War series. Several of those studios were acquired in 2018 when Microsoft picked up In Exile Entertainment, which made Wasteland, Ninja Theory, which made Hellblade, and Obsidian Entertainment, which made The Outer Worlds. In Exile's next game, the action RPG Clockwork Revolution, is exclusive to Xbox. So is Obsidian's next game, Arrow, coming sometime next year. As for Call of Duty, Microsoft's witnesses and attorneys repeatedly stressed the company's outreach to Sony Interactive with an already signed agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation, feature and content parity for at least several more years. In September, SIE boss Jim Ryan rejected the offer, as inadequate. After this, Microsoft offered both Sony and, remarkably, Nintendo 10-year agreements to have Call of Duty at parity on their platforms. In the hearing over the past week, FTC attorney James Weingarten extracted an under-oath promise from Spencer to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation platforms. Weingarten even pressed Spencer further, asking him to make that promise no matter the terms Sony expected, but Corley, sounding impatient, told Weingarten to move on to other questions. Who's going to win in Microsoft versus the FTC? Hold on. Unfortunately, I accidentally clicked something, so it took me to a different article. Okay, here we are. Who's going to win in Microsoft versus the FTC? Observers, analysts, pundits, and the like have had a great time over the past week stacking up the claims and counterclaims made and guessing at the general disposition of Corley to what she's heard. She alone will rule. This is not a jury matter. The FTC has forced almost entirely on-console exclusives as the area in which Microsoft buying Activision harms the market and consumers. Within that category, FTC lawyers have fixated on Call of Duty and what would happen if PlayStation owners lost access to it as the area of greatest harm. To this end, the government made strong points when it was revealed that Microsoft purchased ZeniMax Media, owner of Bethesda Softworks, because it feared Starfield launching this September would become a PlayStation exclusive. Instead, Starfield is an Xbox and PC exclusive. But emails and recorded testimony from Ryan, the president of Sony Interactive Entertainment, would seem to undercut that point. Ryan said he did not view the exclusivity of Bethesda's Redfall or even Starfield to be anti-competitive. Additionally, Ryan sent an email to a colleague, "We'll be more than okay," he said, after discussions with Spencer and Activision boss Bobby Kotick. "I'm pretty sure we will continue to see Call of Duty on PlayStation for many years." Corley at times appeared to flummox the FTC lawyers with her questioning during closing arguments. Corley noted data from Microsoft's expert witness, economist Elizabeth Bailey, who appeared under stipulation from both sides, showing that 62% of PlayStation owners do not play Call of Duty at all. She also chided Weingarten with a reminder that it's not the harm to Sony we care about, it's the harm to consumers. Microsoft and Activision representatives have made this a talking point over the past several months. All this for a shooter video game, Corley said later? We're concerned about competition for this one shooter video game? You're the one who gave that article to me, so I'll let you go first. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you gotta go after that McBooty, right? You know. Anyway, I had to say that.
Imagine going through a name like that, Matt Booty.
Oh yeah, that was the time.
I could just imagine going through like elementary school and stuff the way kids are with a name like that.
Yeah, the girls be touching his McBooty and shit. Yeah.
Okay. Other people imagine what going through a name, going through with school with the last name Booty. Dr. Games 101 prefers to live in his alternate reality, but go on.
Oh yeah, the FTC Microsoft deal. It's official right now as of this week. Microsoft can't acquire Activision Blizzard right now. And
yes, at least in the States.
For now, the United States.
Well, yeah.
But in the United Kingdom, it's going to be a problem because, I hear, not rumors, but there are people saying on forums and other parts of the internet saying that if the ones who are from the United Kingdom, that is, they said that if they were to go through this deal, then there's going to be riots in the streets later on in the year or something, because the Call of Duty FIFA fandom in the United Kingdom would be like, stuck between buying an Xbox or a PS5 or whichever comes first at this rate, because people can't afford, the lower class cannot afford the everyday games of the newer systems, and that just sounds like belittling them, of course. Just the fact that that's all they have left in the United Kingdom because of PEGI. PEGI is it's like the ESRB here in the United States, but it's for the United Kingdom, if not the Europe area. So they have all this. They have only two options: FIFA or Call of Duty. That's about it, when it comes to PlayStation and Xbox. And it's not going to look so good for some of these people in the Europe at least in Europe, altogether. So it's
Well, it's not the United Kingdom. I think the United Kingdom accepted. Last we heard, it was Europe's Contents and Markets Authority.
yeah, kind of confused the two. Sorry about that. Europe is going to be in a kerfuffle.
Yes. So, but yeah. So basically, Call of Duty. So basically, they can own it in the states. What that means for the Content and Markets Authority in Europe, that remains to be seen. They, as far as I know, still have not made a decision. But as we will go through, if not this week, 2 weeks from now, that there was a decision made.
Yeah.
Um, and it looks like the CMA is the only one holding up the deal from happening globally.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be.
Um,
I keep telling the younger gamers or whoever they are, online. Depends on who you talk to. The certain younger gamers, but they'll be like, "Oh, what's the big deal of acquiring the Xbox with the Activision Blizzard and all?" It stifles competition. It just like it reduces competition to the point where it turns into monopolies taking over the industry, especially in gaming. We already have a poor selection or a poor quality of gaming for the past at least 5 years now because of Gamergate and all. And what happened with Gamergate with the journalism stuff like that. So all these people taking over the game industry, whether it's journalism in gaming, whether it's development, whether it's publishing, the articles, you name it, it's all political now to a point where it's like no one's not making games for the sake of fun or for the sake of not no one, but there's a good portion of people out there who are just talking about politics, like that of the what's it called? The Harry Potter game that came out earlier this year, back in April or May. I mean, that was like all about like the transgender rights and stuff like that with J.K. Rowling and all. So it's kind of like it's all this political shit. And I can understand the feel where it's always been like that for decades, but this get out of hand where transgender activists are just trying to start shit for no apparent reason. And it's like it's a video game based on J.K. Rowling's work, and that's about it. And one example. They break it down and make it broader with the Activision Blizzard deal. It's kind of like it's kind of like this big one man show, one game industry, or one company show of gaming. So Sony, of course, they have their options to do exclusive games to compete with Microsoft. But once the Call of Duty is no longer on the PlayStation after 10 years, who knows what's going to happen after that? So. Because I guaranteed at least 10 years to Sony, Microsoft, that is, So.
yeah. So basically, I mean, honestly, this is getting settled a lot faster than I thought it was. You and me you predicted like we would be hearing about this for years to come, going around in circles, basically.
Yeah.
But now it looks like it's final. It looks like again. The only thing stopping this from happening globally is the CMA.
Oh, yeah.
Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Next. Xbox Game Pass losing more games soon. Say goodbye to these 3 Game Pass titles. More Xbox Game Pass will lose more games pretty soon. The Leaving Soon page for Xbox Game Pass states that X01, Paw Patrol the Movie, Adventure City Calls, and Spelunky 2 will get dumped from the Xbox Game Pass library on July 15th across both console and PC. Microsoft subsequently confirmed this in an official blog post. As usual, Game Pass members save 20% on all games when buying them outright, so that's a silver lining for anyone who wants to keep playing any of these titles when they leave the catalog. A second set of games are likely to be removed at the end of July, so keep checking back with GameSpot for the latest. In terms of titles joining Game Pass catalog in July, one of the surprise releases for today, July 5th, is Grand Theft Auto 5. McPixel 3 joins the catalog on July 6th, Common Hood comes out July 11th, and Insurgency Sandstorm also releases for Game Pass on that day. So all those games have joined the service. In other Game Pass news, membership rates are going up. Starting July 6th, price in the U.S. will increase for Ultimate from $15 to $17. Base Game Pass subscriptions will raise from $10 to $11, and PC Game Pass pricing will stay the same. So, are you going to miss XO1, Paw Patrol the movie, Adventure City Calls, or Spelunky 2?
Paw Patrol, my God, damn. Like I was that kind of. If I had a son, maybe, maybe. I mean, if right now it's like Paw Patrol, my God. Come on, James. I mean, I will admit this live on podcast though. I did watch some Paw Patrol when I was like 5 years ago when I was like depressed and all that shit, so to feel more therapeutic with myself. So I did watch Paw Patrol for a few weeks, So to some extent, it's okay for it to be gone for now. But like I said, the sentimental feeling behind the matter, where it's like it's wholesome. It's a family game at least. So.
Right. Anyway, so Dr. Games 101 will be missing Paw Patrol.
Yes, something like that.
Honestly, I'm not going to be missing any of these three games. These three games I never went to. Well, I did have my Game Pass subscription, so yeah, nothing. I don't know what they're going to be losing at the end of the month, but I'm not going to be affected by any of these Game Pass. Any of these Game Pass. What's the word for any of these losses to Game Pass?
Yeah, let's see what's so therapeutic other than guns and violence and death and destruction.
Oh, what's therapeutic for guns, violence, and destruction usually is more guns, violence, and destruction.
Yeah, it's like the song from Hatebreed. Violence leads to more violence.
Yeah, violence leads to more violence. Ain't it great? um, okay, ready to move on?
I'm ready.
Next, Microsoft and Xbox win case against FTC to acquire Activision Blizzard. This is what we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
After 5 days of testimony last month, California Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley has denied the Federal Trade Commission request for a preliminary injunction in its case to block Microsoft and Xbox from acquiring Activision Blizzard. The FTC sought a preliminary injunction in an effort to have the court order Microsoft to cease its attempt at acquiring the Call of Duty maker for a colossal $69 billion. Now that the FTC's request has been denied by the court, the regulator has until the end of July 14th to appeal this decision, as reported by The Verge. With this ruling, Microsoft can now close its acquisition of Activision Blizzard before its July 18th deadline, although it still has to figure out how it's going to handle the decision from the Competition and Markets Authority in the UK to block the purchase over cloud gaming concerns. Microsoft can theoretically close before July 18th without including the UK in its market, or it can attempt to negotiate a deal with the CMA to quell the regulator's concerns as noted by The Verge. However, that seems unlikely as Microsoft has a hearing on July 28th to appeal the regulator's decision. The UK, the European Commission, approved the proposed acquisition in May. Here's what the judge has to say in their opinion denying the preliminary injunction today. In December 2022, the FTC initiated an administrative action to block Microsoft's proposal of Activision, publisher of the first-person shooter video game franchise Call of Duty, among other popular video games. The gist of the FTC's complaint is that Call of Duty is so popular and such an important supply for any video game platform that the combined firm is probably going to foreclose it from its rivals for its own economic benefit to consumers' detriment. Discovery in the administrative action has closed, and trial before an FTC judge is scheduled to commence on August 2nd, 2023. 4 weeks ago, the FTC filed this action to preliminary and join the merge pending completion of the FTC administrative action. Because the merger has a July 18th termination date, expedited proceedings were commenced. After considering the parties' voluminous pre- and post-hearing writing submissions and having held a 5-day evidentiary hearing, the court denies the motion for preliminary injunction. The FTC has not shown it is likely to succeed on its assertion. The combined firm will probably pull Call of Duty from Sony PlayStation, or that its ownership of Activision content will substantially lessen competitive competition in the video game library subscription and cloud gaming markets. Following the release of the judge's decision, Microsoft Vice Chair and President Brad Smith released the following statement on Twitter. We're grateful to the court in San Francisco for this quick and thorough decision and hope other jurisdictions will continue working towards a timely resolution. As we've demonstrated consistently throughout this process, we are committed to working creatively and collaboratively to address regulatory concerns. Xbox head Phil Spencer the following on Twitter today regarding the ruling. We're grateful to this court for swiftly deciding in our favor. The evidence showed the Activision Blizzard deal is good for the industry, and the FTC's claims about console switching, multi-game subscription services, and cloud don't reflect the realities of the gaming market. Since we first announced this deal, our commitment is to bringing more games to more people on more devices has only grown. We've signed multiple agreements to make Activision Blizzard's games, Xbox first-party game, and Game Pass all available to more players than they are today. We know that players around the world have been watching this case closely, and I'm proud of our efforts to expand player access and choice throughout this journey. Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick said the following in a statement obtained by The Verge. Our merger will benefit consumers and workers. It will enable competition rather than allow entrenched market leaders to continue to dominate our rapidly growing industry. Game Informer reached out to Activision Blizzard for a statement from either the company or Kotick regarding today's ruling and will update the story if comment or a statement is received. I also reached out to the FTC for comment regarding today's ruling and will update the story if comment is received. The Verge received the following from FTC spokesperson Douglas Farrar. We are disappointed in this outcome given the clear threat this merger poses to open competition in cloud gaming, subscription services, and consoles. In the coming days, we'll be announcing our next step to continue our fight to preserve competition and protect consumers. Following today's ruling, Microsoft announced it will pause its appeal efforts against the CMA so that two parties can negotiate a potential agreement regarding the proposed Activision Blizzard acquisition that satisfies both. For more about Microsoft's ongoing efforts to acquire Activision Blizzard, read about how Spencer said it's been a learning experience back in June, and then read about how Microsoft said in December that the FTC violates the Constitution by trying to block the acquisition, although it did walk that claim back later. During the 5 days of testimony that happened last month for this case, we learned that Bethesda's Indiana Jones game will be exclusive to Xbox and PC, and that Microsoft had at one point considered acquiring Sega, Bungie, IO Interactive, and more to bolster the Xbox audience. Do you agree with the judge's ruling?
Well, business is business in the end, like from the Death of a Salesman quote from the book and all. Personally, myself, I don't mind it at first, but then again, in the long term, what will this entice the game industry to be like in the next 10, at most 15 years from now? Because like the deal goes with between Microsoft and Sony with the Call of Duty franchise, they're gonna have like 10 years at most of sales or acquisition to for Sony to put them on the PlayStation platform and all. So after 10 years, what's going to entice Microsoft to dominate the competition, to overthrow Sony somehow, some way from the competition and all, and also Nintendo to be this stray, willy nilly nuisance of a competition. In my perspective, I wasn't it's going to be a total shit show in the next 10 years, but after 10 years, it's kind of like what's going to really happen negatively. And like I said earlier tonight, with the acquisition from earlier this month of that article we read there, or what you read earlier, and I shared with you earlier this month, it can be problematic if we're not careful. And it's like the saying goes with for the 2008 crisis, the companies are too big to fail. We must prop up these companies. But once until Microsoft, if ever fails, or the Xbox division fails, we cannot ask for them or tell them the public to prop them up being too big to fail anymore. It's going to be all on Microsoft. It's going to be all on Microsoft to maintain its own services, its own programs, and that's it. Once until they acquire this Activision Blizzard deal, it's up in the air as far as it's up to Microsoft to sustain some form of integrity, in the game industry. So
yeah, so basically, Yeah, so basically, the FTC is no longer a thorn in Microsoft's side of stopping this deal from happening. It can happen in the U.S. Um, they did try more. We'll get into that if we have time, which we probably will.
Yeah.
Ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Next, Microsoft says it will. This is what it was mentioned in the previous article. Microsoft says it will pause its appeal efforts against UK regulator over Activision acquisition to negotiate. Today, we already read that. Now, shortly after the ruling, Microsoft has announced it will pause its appeal efforts. Yada yada yada. With the July 18th deadline for the acquisition, Microsoft theoretically needs to either mark the UK out of its market as it relates to this purchase or negotiate a deal with the CMA to quell the regulator's concerns. Microsoft was previously set to appear in court to appeal the CMA's block on July 28th. According to Microsoft Vice Chair and President Brad Smith, that won't be happening now as the two parties will instead attempt to negotiate a deal that satisfies both. After today's court decision in the U.S., our focus now turns back to the U.K. While we ultimately disagree with the CMA's concerns, we are considering how the transaction might be modified in order to address those concerns in a way that is acceptable to the CMA. In order to prioritize work on these proposals, Microsoft and Activision have agreed with the CMA that a stay of litigation in the UK would be in the public interest, and the parties have made a joint submission to the Competition Appeal Tribunal to this effect. It's important to note that the Competition Appeal Tribunal still needs to either approve or deny this request, as noted by The Verge, but the former seems incredibly likely. In a statement received by The Verge, the CMA said it is ready to consider any proposal from Microsoft to restructure the transaction in a way that would address the concerns set out in our final report, likely alluding with its concerns over cloud gaming concerns that Microsoft disagrees with. Game Informer has reached out to the CMA for a statement regarding Smith's announcement and will update the story if a comment or statement is received. What do you think this means for Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard? I said, they got through the FTC, but they're still trying to get the CMA's approval.
Yeah, pretty much. It's up it's up in the air when it comes to specifically with the Europe and all, and that's going to affect the overall choices of gaming for that area of the world. And someone mentioned this in one of the not podcasts, but it was either a video on YouTube or a podcast, either or. And he lives in the United Kingdom. Last time I checked, and he told me that there's like I said, there might be riots or some sort of upheaval of conflict. Not conflict, like it's gonna be like people gonna be pissed off about the decision, and the only thing you have to choose between is Call of Duty and FIFA, and that's about it. And it's like that could last for another 10 years at the most with Sony and all. So it's kind of like it's up in the air right now as far as Europe is concerned. So
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, yeah. So I mean, um, yeah. So basically, they're trying to restructure the deal so the CMA will stop digging its feet in.
oh yeah,
Um, but I really don't have too much to say on it, just because we have more news to even cover that we'll go through that we're going to try to get through tonight.
oh yeah,
So in that case, you want to move on?
yeah. I already move on.
All right.